Every journalist and author in the world wanted to get this call. Please tell us how the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be the first writer to chronicle the top-secret raid to kill 9/11 mastermind Osama bin Laden firsthand in real time as it happened land on your radar.
Right after the bin Laden raid, I called my sources and said, hey, what are the chances the SEALs would talk to me? And they said, none. You're not going to get anything. And so I sort of left it alone at that point. And then I got a call right at the end of the year. My agent called me and said, look, I need you to send me everything you've written about the military. I know this editor who's putting together, it's a really big military book. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but he's saying it's big. Can you send me your stuff? And so I sent him all my stuff, and I didn't think twice, got through the holidays. And then early that year, I got a call that said, hey, this editor from Dutton is going to send you a non-disclosure agreement. Sign it, fax it back, he'll call you. So I get the non-disclosure agreement. I think it was a $500,000 penalty on it or something. And I thought, I mean, what are you going to do, right? Now I got to know, right? I mean, you got to know what this is. So I was pretty sure it was like McRaven or somebody. It felt like a big guy. And so I sent it up, and Ben Sevier, who was the editor of the book, he called me and said, look, I got one of the guys on the bin Laden raid. He's interested in doing a book. We're down to 3 finalists. I think this was on a Friday. Can you be in DC on Monday to meet him? So of course, at the time I was working at the local paper here in Wilmington, North Carolina. So I said, of course I could be there. I went in, I took Monday off, and then I went home and told my wife I had to drive to DC for a job interview for a job I can't tell her what it's about. And then I drove to DC on Sunday night, and then Monday morning I met Mark Owen at a hotel lobby. His room wasn't available, so we met with his agent at the coffee shop. Now, I don't like chocolate. I don't eat chocolate. I haven't liked it as a kid. And Mark Owen brought cupcakes, giant chocolate cupcakes, and I ate half of one as we went through the interview process. And I think the reason why I won out in the end, because he had 2 more author interviews. I'm from Virginia Beach, so we had common ground there because he was stationed in Virginia Beach. We had been to some of the same places in Afghanistan, so we had the same, we could talk about the bases and the places around those places. And he asked me what I thought of some of the other SEAL books in that interview. And that was like that 50-50 question. You could either be honest about it or you could try to anticipate what he wants to say. And I remember I told him, we don't need another bunch of SEAL books about what it's like to be cold on the beach. And he's like, I agree with you. And I think those were the kind of the moments I think that. And so that I went home that night, and then that was a Monday. I think Tuesday I got a call from my agent that said, hey, they're going to make an offer. And then, I would have done that for $5 and some bubble gum, right? I mean, that's the story everybody wanted. And so as much as at that time I was more interested in not doing co-writing anymore, but that was one of those moments that like there was no other way to get it.
So you get the gig. How fast was your heart racing to get started working with Mark Owen, putting this story down on paper for the very first time in a book?
So you'll appreciate this from a biographer standpoint. We wrote it backwards, okay? We wrote it from chapter 9 to the end, and then I wrote chapter 1 through 8. And we did that for a particular reason. Nobody bought the book because they cared about his backstory. They wanted to read the raid. So what I wanted to do is when we got to the raid, I didn't want the reader to have to stop and learn about some guy in the middle, right? And so what I did is we went through the raid, and I made sure I made note of who are the important people that are going to do things on this that we need to meet. And then we built the first part of the book around meeting those guys so that you knew who they were when the raid started. But the first time we sat down in his house. He had a small office, and he just told me the story, like beginning to end. I didn't stop him, didn't ask any questions because I just wanted to get it myself. I don't think I recorded that. I think I just took notes. And then I went back and so we would meet in the mornings, and we would work from 9 to 12 about, and it was each chapter at a time. So, hey, we're talking about chapter 9 today. So all we're going to talk about today is how you found out about the raid. What were you doing? And then we would just stay there and go over and over. And then I would transcribe it and write it. And I was turning in 2 chapters a week. So it was fast. Like, you didn't have time to think too much besides what are we doing today? And then on Fridays, I'd turn in the chapters and drive back to North Carolina. And then Sunday I'd drive back up.
Please take viewers inside your head. Were you actually seeing the raid unfolding as you were listening to Mark's recounting of the moments leading up to and then the actual killing of bin Laden?
So you got to think of it like this. He's telling you about his job. So he's very like, then I did this and then I did that and then he did this and then we did this. You know, it's very much like he spent his whole life honing this instrument so that he was doing his job. So what made it fun was to go back and be like, so there's one chapter in No Easy Day, for those who haven't read it, that just focuses on him getting dressed to go on the raid. And that was a conscious effort to slow down the narrative a little bit because you were going pretty fast at that point, but also because everything they put in their pockets and everything it was there for a reason. And that was like symbolism to like everything is measured. They have a certain way they do this thing. Like he knew, I'm going to get to the helicopter, I'm going to pee first, and then I'm going to get in, you know, like they have their way of doing this. And so when he first tells the story a couple of times, he's telling it to you very clinically. And what happens is he's got to get comfortable with you. And I didn't have time to do the whole, like, I'm going to take 24 hours. We're just going to hang out. Right. I mean, and, you know, at this point, something I tell everybody I co-write with is like, we don't have to be friends, but you got to like me because I'm going to be around you for at least a year. So if you can't stand me or you don't think we're going to get along, we can't do it. Because I've done co-writing gigs that they're not great. So we're still trying to get to know each other, right? And he's going through some transition. He's getting out of the Navy, so he's got some transition things he's got to accomplish. And so there was lots of all kinds of other stuff around. But I think he liked the time we got to spend. And as we got to spend more time, I get to go deeper. And that's why at the end, we get to stuff like throwing glitter bombs on each other's gear, or the Staff of Power, and these other things that make it more human. But those came late in the process. I think I wrote the kind of the humor parts of those chapters as almost at the end.
From an advice standpoint for the aspiring author, what's your method and approach to writing an effective action scene as you did so masterfully in this book?
Small. Stay small. I try to write these things in like coffee breath close, soda straw view of the action. I think you lose that tension when you get too far from the feeling of you're holding the rifle and you're walking in that door and you know that you're walking into a gunfight. If I pull you too far out, you don't have that intimacy. So as much as I can get you to stay in that head, in the character's head or in the real guy's head, and focus in on what that person was thinking, even if what that person was thinking was, I'm utterly calm, I know exactly what I'm doing. There's something there as much as there is, I'm terrified and I hope I don't miss, right? And so to me, the best action is when you can get as close as you can to it and don't go far away from that. And I'm sure we'll get to Rock Force later, but that was one of the things that was what a mantra from Rock Force is around the World War II books, which we can talk about.
Did you feel any extra pressure on your side of the narrative aisle with the responsibility you'd been given of telling the story for the first time on paper, especially knowing it'd be the first time the world would get to hear about the raid blow by blow?
I equate it to being an actor and learning you're going to play the role, right? So you start to get in the person's head, and you start to think a little bit like Mark Owen, and you start to talk like Mark Owen. I've got echoes of Mark Owen in things I say and do now because I spent so much time, you spend so much time together talking about really like you're saying. I don't know how many times I asked the question like, what were you thinking? What did that smell like? Right? What did that feel like? Were you cold? Like you talk so much about feelings and texture that, so for me writing it was cool. I mean, it's fun. It was probably the most fun book I've written. And it was the one that once I got out of my own head, it went really quickly.
What about when you handed the finished draft of the first, like for him to read, how did that feel? And how did he react?
What was sort of difficult was the editor and his agent wanted to see pages almost immediately. And so, and I'm a very, drafts for me 1 through 4 are crap. It's like I don't speak English. And then once I get my hands around the story and can really see it, they start to get better quickly. But those first couple, it's like pulling teeth. And so they were scared after the first draft because it just wasn't a good book. And they were like, did we make a mistake? This guy can't do it. And it took me a little while to get, but once I could get the flow, it went quickly. And like I said, this one was one of my most favorite books to write, because once I got the hang of it, I could get it. And I liked the kinetic action, and that sort of made it fun. And some of those, there's a couple lines I remember writing, and you couldn't tell anybody what you were doing, but I remember writing and getting that stupid smile on your face. You're like, that was good. Like, that works out great.